All right, so we're live. Welcome to another Run Wild with Us. You know what? Ask us anything. I'm Lisa Kastner. I'm the founder and executive editor of Running Wild and Rise Presses. And I am here with you on Thursdays between 5 and 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern time, so that you can ask us whatever the heck you want. So typically, I am here with some of our absolutely incredible editors. Typically, it's Ben White and Peter Wright. Unfortunately, Peter cannot make it this evening, which is all good. He's fine. He just had some stuff he had to take care of. So that said, if you're watching and you have a question that you want to ask, go ahead, pop it into the comments section of whatever venue you are tuned into. And what's going to go down is I am going to ask the question, and then I'm going to pop it over to Peter. Or if Peter was here, I would, but I'm going to pop it over to Ben, and then I will respond to your questions in kind. So with that, hey man, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. My cat is hyper needy right now. I think she senses that we've got all these fires going on, not in my home, but it's if you look at a map for the LA fires, for anyone who doesn't know, I live in LA, and we live in the University Park area, and that happens to be, there's this weird there are a couple of like maybe 2 or 3 areas like this. It's like a little square that's not identified as a fire zone. So like we get evacuation warnings, but we haven't been evacuated. Knock on plastic.
How's the air quality?
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
I haven't worked out in like 2 weeks because it's so bad that like you can feel it in your glands.
Mm-hmm.
And like last night, I was actually surprised. I had a really hard time sleeping, but it's because I kept waking up because I was having problems breathing.
Yeah.
Because it clogs your sinuses, and your sinuses get sore. I don't know how else to explain it. But like your sinuses and your throat, and I've seen people reporting they're getting bloody noses out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like all kinds of just wild stuff. Don McIntyre says, hey guys, wanted to know if you're safe from the fires. Well, this young man, that's right. This that guy, he thankfully is nowhere near the fires. And it looks like we're down to 4. I'm like I just keep track of it. There's a couple of different like official maps to follow, and I just follow those maps. And according to those, now mind you, over 40,000 acres have burned. Mm-hmm. And I think it's I have to look it up. It's like 40,000 acres and more than like 1,100 or 1,200 homes, something like that. So I've just been making sure I stay inside. And this will sound weird, like I'm not working out, but it's because when I do work out, I actually feel worse. Like normally when I work out, I feel better when I'm done.
Yeah.
But because of the poor air quality when I work out, I actually feel like crap. So, whatever. But I'm alive. Yay! But that's why my cat's even more needier than normal, is because I think she can sense, as my husband likes to put it, a disturbance in the force, you know. But Don, thank you for checking on us. Caroline says, so glad to see you, Lisa. I've been very worried. Yikes. Oh, please don't worry. I've got to admit, like, I am so proud of the Los Angeles community because I still remember Tuesday morning. I think we all got this like massive evacuation warning. And there's two evacuation notices you get. One's a warning and one's an evacuation, like a mandatory evacuation.
Like an order, yeah.
Yeah, evacuation order. Thank you. And man, my friends and I, we were all just texting one another like mad. Are you okay? Are you okay? What do you need? Do you know? And what's hilarious about this is we're all in Los Angeles County, and we're all like, if you need some place to stay, you can come here. Now, I don't know. Now, I know, Ben, knowing you already know this, but for those who are watching who may not understand, the way the fires are spreading and the reason they are so huge is because it has been so dry in Los Angeles County for the last 6 months. And we're getting an unusually high number fast isn't the right word either. The Santa Ana winds are not for some reason this year they're between like 40 and 100 miles an hour, which I don't like. Think about you driving 40 to 100 miles an hour and now apply that to winds. And so you take that combination of even just a small spark of a fire, and that spark, an ember from that spark spreads because of the winds, and holy moly, you are going to have huge, vast areas that are going to get set on fire. So the fact that we're all like, are you okay? Are you okay? Can you can come stay with me is it's wonderful, and it's incredibly kind, and it just really shows how everybody looks out for one another. But it's also completely illogical because you don't know where those embers are going to land next. You know what I mean? So anyway, but yes, no, we're totally great. We're all good. And I like I said, I think there's still 4 fires that are burning now. And when I say 4 fires, I mean it's actually, I think it's technically 154 fires that began. But they try to bucket it into like different sections, and so that I think in part so it doesn't sound so horrific, but but yeah, so we're down to 4. So I'm really looking forward to them all at least being like 90% done, if not completely done. But Tejas says, hey, I'm finally back. Yay! Awesome to see you. TJ says, my thoughts have been with you guys for days. So glad to see you. Okay. Thank you so much, TJ. As always, it is just awesome to see our community, right? Because although I'm incredibly proud of the Los Angeles community, our Running Wild and Rise community, we fucking rock. I'm just saying. We're pretty amazing. So just putting that out there. Tejas says, come east. Dude, I actually came from the East Coast, so that could happen.
You went west.
Huh?
You went west already.
I know, I did. I totally did. So anyway, so how are you doing, Ben? What is going on?
Good. Just I've got the short story anthology under control. Just waiting for one more author to approve or reject my suggestions, and send me a third-person bio, and that'll be wrapped up, ready for production.
Woo!
I know. And then the short story collection, the single author collection, is in the hands of the author, and she is doing good progress there as well. So it'll wrap up pretty soon too. I'll go through it again to see what she did, what she accepted or rejected, and then that'll be ready for production shortly.
Wow.
Then I'm sure there's another one waiting, waiting in the wings for me to get to it.
Heck yeah, I think that's true for all of us.
Yeah.
Well, so I finished my first round of going over the narrative poem collection.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if you remember. So guys, we're going to be publishing. I personally, I adore the concept behind this, and it is such a cool collection. So what it is these two phenomenal authors basically identified women of note in historic women of note, and took either something that they wrote or something that was written about them, and then created poems that are intended to kind of epitomize the woman or her life. And they are so fucking cool. Like, seriously, these, and then what comes with it is like a biography of the woman, of the historic woman, and why they picked whatever it is that they picked to base the poem on. So I did a first round, and then I realized, so anyone who's watching and you're one of our authors, I want to apologize. So I have gotten several emails in the last couple months about, hey, when am I going to get my next sales report? Because the last sales report we sent out was in August, or no, it was in August. So I have been working with this phenomenal woman who is a CFO in her day job, and I'd gotten a lot of feedback on from some of our authors that the sales reports were confusing. So I've been working with the CFO on simplifying our sales report. So I have spent the last week basically pulling together these sales reports for everyone. Now, because I'm completely redoing the whole format, it takes me a lot longer than if all I was doing was updating it based on the most recent sales. So what would normally take me about a day to create all the reports is taking me probably about a week and a half. So I'm sorry. I apologize, but my goal is to get this out to everybody. I'm a little more than halfway through. I'm hoping I'll have these all done by the end of this weekend. And I have off on Martin Luther King Day on Monday, so I should be able to do that, but we'll see. But that's my goal. I want to have it all done and out to everyone. So thank you for your patience. I totally get, how eager you are as well. But I basically made it, I put everything aside in order to get this done. And then once I'm done this, then I still have to write my own book. I have to finish editing the the poetry collection I just mentioned. I'm also going to be the editor for the Rise short story anthology. And then I believe I have on my plate at least one or two other titles that we recently acquired, but I don't like Ben. It's one of those, like, you say, oh yeah, that sounds great, right? And then you get into whatever it is that you need to get done, and then you realize, oh crap, I completely forgot about this.
Oh yeah, it's waiting. I'm not done.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm never done. It's all good. So TJ says, I just sent in to a crime fiction anthology getting together to raise money for the LA reconstruction. You guys planning anything along those lines? Right now, I haven't set up anything along those lines. There have been a lot of benefits that I've seen come up. I think it's a great idea. I think we could totally do that. Again, it's just I've been so swamped in trying to deal with everything that I haven't set anything up yet. But TJ, to your point, I could totally see us setting up I don't know, Ben, what do you think? Like a short story anthology that's yeah, I think we could do that. Absolutely.
Even wanting to attach a disaster theme to it or something related.
I kind of actually I'd love people's feedback on this. My gut says don't do something disaster related because it's about like if you live here and at least especially last week related. Yeah, you feel like when you walk outside you feel like you're in the middle of an apocalypse. I mean like so I kind of lean away.
No, that's a good point.
And I didn't mention that before, but seriously, especially all last week and the beginning of this week, you wake up like the Tuesday morning when they first announced the evacuations. I woke up and I was like, our fireplace isn't going. Why do I smell like a fireplace? And it's because the winds are causing all of the fires like in the air. So the air is heavy with that scent of burning wood. And the air is so dense with like smoke and debris and ash. So like when you go to your car and you open the door, literally ash just falls from it. So like every morning I would go and I'd open, I'd just open one of my doors to see how much ash and how heavy the air would be. Like it would feel like you were walking into a cloud full of debris. Mm-hmm. And then usually by like mid to late afternoon, it would lift, but then, by overnight, it would all come back. So, anyway, yeah. But no, we could do that. I mean, we could do something like, a rejuvenation theme or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, guys, if you have any ideas, go ahead and put them in there. And then Teja says, how's business doing? Actually, so we're going to have a leadership meeting. Is it next week?
The 22nd? Yeah.
Wednesday. Okay. All right. Yes, I'm actually going to be sharing with all my core leaders on our team how things have gone. Let's just say this year compared to last year has been, or 2024 compared to 2023 was absolutely phenomenal. I really think that all of our authors should be very, very proud of their titles. And again, we had another year where another one of our titles was named among the best of the year by Kirkus. In 2024, it was Pocket Full of Teeth was named among the best of the year by Kirkus. So I just really think everyone needs to just be very proud of all the great work that they've done. So Karimo says, bonjour, Creates. As always, it's lovely to see you. TJ says, after 9/11 in New York City, even in Brooklyn, for weeks, the air quality was horrid. Wear a mask as much as you can. That's true. I mean, and they also put out, they announce on different weather sites now, like what the air quality is. And sometimes, like, I don't think that they keep up with it very well, because within like 20 minutes, it'll go from, air quality of, 40, which is actually a good air quality. And then all of a sudden it'll be like air quality 80. I'm like, all right, for real? Were you guys just not paying attention? So actually, Ben, have you ever experienced anything like this before?
No. Because the air quality to speak to it, if there's a wildfire in Arizona, we will get a reduced air quality in New Mexico because the wind's blowing it this way.
Oh.
So it makes for pretty sunsets, but it's still not it's not healthy. And then of course I have had to evacuate for a couple of hurricanes out of New Orleans, not Katrina, but we evacuated for Georges. And so it's good to avoid if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. TJ says they lied to us all the way down the line. 9/11, just to make people feel relaxed, but the microparticles really mess with your lungs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can really kind of feel it all through like your air passages. And then definitely overnight in your lungs. Like your lungs feel heavy. If that makes sense. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And your breathing is labored.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Admittedly, last night was the first night that it was that for me that my lungs felt that heavy. I hadn't had that. It hadn't felt that bad in the last 2 weeks. So I don't know what changed. And maybe it's just because of how long we've had this going on, that after almost 2 weeks worth of it, my body just finally said, you know what? I'm tired of this.
Your body knows.
Body knows. Absolutely. Absolutely. So have you gotten any kind of cool or interesting questions from anybody lately?
Just some insights on the short story, not necessarily a question, but some occurrences that happen more often this time around with the anthology. There's and maybe it's a personal bias on my part, but a short story is short, and if you catch yourself writing a lot of detail and descriptions for your short story, you might want to think about a novella or a novel even. And once you hit 10,000 words, especially when I'm trying to balance out the feel of the book, and you've submitted a 31-page short story, and then the most I've got other than that has been 15 pages. It's tough to put that in there and make it fit. So it's just something to think about. If your short story should have characters, and they should be interesting characters, interesting scenes, but you don't need as much detail to describe those scenes or the characters as you would in something longer. So just consider what's the point of the story? And a lot of the stories this time around didn't really have a point. It was more, we talked about before, it was more of a vignette of this happened. Okay, it could be interesting if there's a reason it happened or a reason why you're telling me it happened. What's the point of the story? What's the value add for us to publish the story and put it out in the world? And I turned down maybe 5 to 7 short stories that were really just too long. But I encouraged them, they're good and you've got good characters and interesting scenes and settings, but consider making them a little bit longer and submitting them for the novella anthology, or keep going with it and make it a novel and then submit it to us. Yeah,
absolutely.
And just because, I'm looking at that short story that has impact. You get to the end and it matters. So, those characters mattered, and when they did this, it mattered. Not just like, and it's good to know when your story ends. It's just as important of knowing when it begins. We've talked about that before too, of a lot of information ramping up to the story. Know when it begins, but know when it ends too.
And know that you don't have to know that when you start writing it, right?
Oh, no.
I mean, a lot of times, especially if you're a pantser, I know a lot of really successful short story writers who are pantsers. And oftentimes, I mean, you figure out what the story is really about in the revision. And that's a lot of times that can be beautiful. I mean, you can really develop some brilliant works operating that way.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times there are people who, you know, like I tell this story probably far too frequently. You know, back in the day, I was one of the editors for a really tiny online publication, and we had this fabulous short story that was submitted, and I fought tooth and nail for it, and you know, they didn't feel comfortable publishing it because none of the editors had the, I guess you could say, the cultural background that would be needed to really, I guess you could say, not enliven the story. That's not a good way of putting it, but to enrich the story. And I was like, you better that's the whole point. Like this, it represented a historic period in San Francisco. I'm like, you know, the fact that there's no one on this acquisition team who has the right cultural background, that's the whole point, is that there aren't enough voices out here to represent those who are not Caucasian. And they finally gave in and published it. And I reached out to the author directly, who turned out to be Jamie Ford. And the short story ended up being the beginning of Hotel in the Corner of Bitter and Sweet, which became this global phenomenon. And Jamie kindly actually gives me credit in the beginning of in the opening of the book, in the acknowledgments. But, you know, he started that as a pantser, you know, and, you know, when I reached out to him and I said, I know that this is initially a short story, but I'm telling you, dude, this is a novel. Like, I can tell it's a novel because of how rich the story was. And he was like, it's funny you say that, because I am currently expanding it. Like, you know, I feel like it's a novel too. So, you know, that's just one example of someone who came into it not realizing that it was something bigger than it was, until he got it again, until he started really revising it. So
yeah. And actually, the conversation with an author I said, well, you know, we really want to tailor this down because it reads like it's part of something bigger. And he said, well, it is part of something bigger. It's an excerpt from a novel. I said, well, that's okay. And it can work as a standalone short story, but you can't reference things that your reader hasn't read from that novel. So you've got to make sure that the story that you've extracted from your larger piece is still able to stand alone and make sense with that kind of meaning and value for the reader, because they don't know your world. They don't know that universe you've created based on these characters that are doing stuff. Why are they doing that? And why? Tell me more or tell me less.
Well, yeah, that's where I was going to go. Like, either you can figure out ways that you can get them into your reader into that world. And so you can leverage it as a short story, but you're going to have to revise it to do it. Right. So absolutely, man, Tejas just asking us a bajillion questions. He's asked, how's this year looking and what are you most excited about? Honestly, we actually have all of our books for 2025 in the can. They're all ready to go. I've already been presenting them to the sales force at our distributor, IPG. We've got a bunch. It's, again, you know, just a really fabulous slate of books. I'd say I'm super excited about a memoir that we're putting out this year in May by Scott Leva. So Scott, it's called, I was Spider-Man. And Scott was actually, I call him the original Spider-Man. And the reason I do that is because there is an iconic comic book cover, Spider-Man comic book cover that's half Peter Parker, half Spider-Man. And that's actually Scott. And so Scott is actually a professional stuntman, and he won the technical Oscar for, he actually created the stunt airbag. So, and I was lucky enough to work on that memoir, had an absolute blast working on it with Scott. So that's definitely one of the ones that I'm super excited about. Alterations, which actually technically comes out, I believe, this month, or actually, or at least comes out shortly. That one is also phenomenal. You definitely want to check that out. We have a short story anthology that's all called Incurable. And that's all short stories in the world of Cure. So the novel about lycanthropes that I put out there, we had so many people who expressed an interest in writing a short story in that world. They just thought it was so fun that we went, okay, sure, we can do that, So that actually comes out in October. Oh my gosh, so many things. I don't know, what about you, Ben? What are you excited about?
Well, I had, the Sins of God was released last weekend already. So 2025 started off with a book and a couple of poems published in Exterminating Angel Press. So it started off good. We try to maintain that and keep the rejections to a minimum. But just if you're excited about all the 2025 novels in the can, I'll be excited about all the 2026 novels that are waiting on us to edit.
Right?
Yeah. Because there are some good titles, and I think we've selected some good for 26 into 27, and so to look forward to getting into those and looking for that one that kind of wrote itself. I'm still waiting for that one. I've had a streak where they didn't write themselves, but. That's part of the editing world too, to go in and help it write itself.
Yeah, same. But honestly, some of the ones that I mean, they didn't write themselves, but the author took our feedback and really took it to heart.
Yes,
those are some of the ones that have come out to be pretty damn brilliant, in their revisions. So yeah, totally. Teja says, what are your thoughts on James Gunn's DCU and the Superman teaser trailer? I honestly haven't been tracking it that much. And, I'll be honest, part of me, there's so much talent out there. I mean, there are so many incredible things out there. I get disappointed when I see that for whatever reason, we've decided to recreate Superman again, right? I mean, I don't know. I've heard it's really good. I've heard that the teaser trailer is really good. I'm having a hard time getting excited enough to watch it because it just seems wrong. I don't know. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I haven't seen either one of those two speak intelligently about it. Not that I would anyway, but but it's a good point of how many remakes do we need? When there's other good works to go ahead and turn into visual creations that you can track along with the book or that deviates from the book even. But the idea in the book is the ideas of the books are out there that are viable into other forms. But no, we're gonna make another remake of A Star Is Born. That's what we need.
How fun would that be?
Yes. How fun would that be? Again.
Again. Well,
Star is reborn again.
going back to the like what we're excited about, I'm also super excited since we acquired Monstrous Books, and we'll have James on our leadership team, and we're already actively he's actively coming in on board, and we're getting everything set up. So all of his phenomenal he primarily does like graphic novels and novels, so that they can come out with our and our distributor seems pretty excited about it too. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Tia asks, have you seen Creature Commandos? I loved it. I admit I have not. The most recent film I've seen was Wicked, and I loved Wicked. Like I was like booger crying through like half of it, but like in a positive way. And the weekend I was gonna go see another movie is when the fires broke out, so I didn't think it was appropriate to do that. Yeah. But I don't know. Ben, have you seen Creature Commandos? Have you seen any movies?
I haven't. I'm way too sheltered.
Okay.
I guess.
And all right.
I'm counting on our Thursday night Ask Us Anythings to catch up. So keep asking.
Oh, okay. All right. So I think that means, yeah, we have to go see Creature Commandos. Tia asks, what was the moment that you decided to start Running Wild, and how did you get people on board? So I decided to start Running Wild. I was literally the first time hanging out with my now husband, and so this was back in like 2011, and I was basically just venting about how I knew all these brilliant authors who couldn't get their work published, and I didn't understand why. And I mean, seriously, brilliant people. And he was just like, well, why don't you just go ahead and why don't you start your own press? My husband is a professional musician, and his point to me was that in the music industry, that's how it works. If you see a gap, if you see, something missing, then you fill it. So I spent the next like 5 years that like every time I went to a conference or a workshop or anything that was writing or book related, I would find an editor or editors and agents, and I'd basically buy them a drink and ask them, like, how do you make your decisions? And that's how, and I did a ton of research, and that's how I figured out where the gaps were. And then a dear friend, Jade Blackwater, I asked her if she would be willing to do like a proof of concept with me using a novella that I had written. And, she kindly agreed. And so we first did the novella, and then we did our first short story collection. And Ben, I don't remember, was your narrative poem, was that in the short story collection or the novella anthology?
Novella.
The novella? Okay.
Yeah.
So 2 of the gaps we also found were
like 60 parts, so it fit the novella.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. 2 of the gaps that we found were in form. And what I mean by that is there are tons of really great short stories and tons of great novellas that they just can't find a home because there are at the time, there weren't really any novella anthologies out there. And most short story anthologies were, it had to be genre based. And if it was like a cross genre or literary, oftentimes you couldn't find it in print. You might be able to find something online, but you couldn't find it in print. So Jade and I started the anthologies. And then Jade, again, still a dear, 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 and amazing friend. She was like, this isn't my thing. I love you for doing it. But so she completely backed me, continuing to drive forward with Running Wild. And then I reached out to Ben and Peter, because I had published them both in some of the anthologies. And I was like, hey guys, I need editors. Would you guys be interested in working with me? Right. And so actually, I think it's better ask. So Ben, why did you agree? Like, what keeps you around, dude? Because you've been around now, what, like 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
8?
7, I guess. It was like 2017, 2016,
Okay.
2017. Because
Okay.
the first book I edited was The Faith Machine, Tony Milazzo's book, and which was a great experience. And he had it edited and was kind of questioning why I was editing it again, but I found some places to add value, and we had some good conversations. So it was a great experience, and that's what I was looking for when I said yes, and I passed the test, the editor's test. But it was just, I think, just to expand the experience around the publishing world, and not just from the perspective of an author, but from the other side of it is editing. And then the acquisition editor later on, just to make those decisions of what my personal preferences are and how they match up with others' personal preferences. And we've talked about it before on this forum. Some great conversations have come out of there just based on those personal preferences that sometimes are eye-opening. You didn't know you had them, or you didn't know that they could be so wrong. At all. I didn't see that at all. But it was just the expansion of the experience.
Yeah, and I just figured, like, for anyone who isn't aware, we're all doing this as like a second day job, right? Like, we've all got at least one day job. And like now I'm planning on this changing, right? But right now we're in a financial situation where I'm more so paying for everything out of pocket, and any kind of money we get, any kind of profit we get, actually just goes right back into putting ours out there. But we've actually had interest by some capital investors and by some banks to possibly invest in us. And but like right now, like, I don't pay me, and Ben and Peter and all of our editors get paid very, 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 very little. And most people, including our authors, it's the percentage of net revenue that's high. And so, the potential for making a decent amount of money is absolutely there. It's just that, again, we're so small right now that we are still like, we've proven we put out quality product, right? We've proven that over and over and over again with the awards that we won, with the accolades that we've received. It's more so getting the broader retailer population to know who we are and the quality of books that we have out there, that their fans would be interested in. So and that's why I deferred to Ben, because I'm like, I don't know why the man's still here. I was I know a lot of people who would have told me to kiss off a long ass time ago, and I would have totally understood. So I actually, a lot of times, and Ben knows this, we'll have people come to us with a wanting to edit, And I'll tell them flat out, I would totally understand if you only edited a couple of books and got, decent praise for it and then moved on to a larger publisher, because they'll be able to pay you like a full-time employee, right? And that's cool. That's totally okay. To me, this isn't just about finding great talent and as our mission states, changing the world through story. It's finding great authors and great editors and people, like anyone who has potential that they really want to grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we thrive on that,
I see creative freedom for the authors, but also for the editors. It's very few publishing firms would probably allow me to take Obsidian Waste and rearrange it to where it's really a hybrid of prose and poetry, and which the author was great to see, because he wasn't really sure. He could hear his language, but he couldn't see his language. But so I took it on the page where you could see the breaks and the thoughts and the free flow of associated ideas and images that he could hear, but until he had the freedom to put it on the page and see it, that was rewarding for him and for me as an editor. And I said, yeah, we can do that. And, I didn't ask Lisa. Who knows if I can do that or not? It worked, and the author was happy, and it became an aesthetic that added to his story.
And that's my default. I just want the author and the editor to work together, right? It's a collaboration. And, that was poor Ben. I mean, I think I still remember that email. Like, is it okay if I do this? And I was like, hey, if the author's okay with it, I'm cool. That's what it's about. It's enriching each other. It's enriching each other. And in that enrichment, it elevates the work itself. So,
sometimes the creativity wins out over even the punctuation and grammar rules, I think. And so as long as you're doing it on purpose, and it's not, it's not something against your 11th grade English teacher, some vendetta, but as long as it's something that you're doing it on purpose for the creativity. I'm reading Pocketful of Teeth right now, and she uses different formats for different voices, and which is a nice tool. And you're not going to see that everywhere, but she put it together very nicely. And it's a good shift and get a good break on the reader's eye to hear those different voices, but to also see it on the page. It's a different voice.
And sometimes you need that. Like, you have to have that creativity within the formatting itself that really, it becomes part of the story.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that. Again, though, to Ben's point, it has to be intentional. It can't just be, like, oh, well, I forgot how to spell where, so I'm just going to, screw around and then put it all over the place,
I think that's a colon, but I'm not sure.
Dawn asked about reaching IPG. Dawn, do me a favor, shoot me an email. Let me know which book, the ISBN associated with the paperback. I'm assuming it's paperback. How many books, where to send it, and then I can connect you directly with our account exec. So, Taz says, when you say acquired, like, how does it happen? Do you go and say, hey, I'd like to acquire your company, or do they come to you asking if you can acquire them? Wow, these are great questions. Okay. So in this instance, James Accolone and I had a mutual friend, and the mutual friend knew that James was having a hard time finding a distributor. And so James Accolone started Monstrous Books through Kickstarter, and he sells in the thousands. Like, so when I heard that, and I have read like 3 or 4 of his books. when I heard that he was having a hard time finding a distributor, I was shocked because most publishers feel like they're lucky if they can sell 500 books, right? So the fact that he's able to sell in the thousands and he couldn't get a distributor, I was mind blown. So and I knew what he put out was quality, or I know fabulous. I know what he puts out is quality. So I connected him with my distributor, and they, for whatever reason, he was having a hard time, finding someone to, like, he submitted his what do you call it? His you have to put in a submission, like a proposal, right? And he didn't hear back. So I said, all right, how about this? I really enjoy your work. I think it's a lot of fun. It's really smart. It's really layered. It actually fits within our mission to change the world through story, right? I would consider everything he puts out as cross genre. How about I acquire you as an imprint, but I will have absolutely no say creatively or otherwise, because I already know you put out quality, right? Like, this is not, excuse me, I know the stories that you create are supported. So I'm like, unless you want one of us to work with you as an editor, we're gonna completely stay out of it. But then that way you have access to our distributor, and then you're welcome to join us for any kind of acquisition sessions, any kind of discussions around authors. And he actually puts out graphic novels, and that's an area that we want to get into. And I just said, just be aware you may get pinged by myself or one of my other editors to sit down and talk about how can we take some of these amazing novellas and short stories and possibly novels, although that's doubtful. And that's a whole nother thing that has to do with structure and form and blah, blah, blah. And make them into graphic novels. And long story short, he agreed. And so yeah. So basically they come to me. Bottom line. They come to me for help. And then what were some high risks did you take with Running Wild, and how did you get yourself into taking those risks? I want to say almost everything that we do is a risk. So like I just mentioned, I mean, all the financial backing to date, it's all from me, hence day job. And some of the risks, like a lot of times, like let's say if one of our books, I know it's going to be named like among the best of the year or something like that, I'll pay. We had two of our books early on. I think it was it wasn't Death Heaven. It was one of Curtis Smith's books. And then I think it was Teehee's short story collection. We were given a heads up they would be named among the best of the year. And so I paid for a publicist to pull together an interview series. So they both got on like a ton of NPRs, a ton of radio station programs, a ton of bloggers, all that kind of thing. That's the kind of risks that we'll do, because that's not cheap, just so you know. But I'll pay for things like that if I know that it could potentially cause an uplift in not only the brand but in the broader world, knowing and understanding that this book and this author exists, and increasing that awareness. And then Tia asked, so I should not say this out loud, but so Ben, what was your first impression of Lisa?
Well, If I'm not here next week, you'll know this is the wrong answer. But it's and again, some of you have heard this story before, but I submitted a long 60-part poem called The Cuban, which was about a Russian, because that's the way I think. And but I knew that there was no market for that kind of long narrative poem, so I submitted it as a novella, and Lisa accepted it as a novella, and my first response was to email her and say, "Are you sure?" And when her answer was yes, and with no further explanation, it was, okay, she's serious about what she does. She's made her decision. All I need to do is shut up and get it published. That's fine, because she is serious and driven to do this, and I need to get out of the way. So that was the first impression of just based on that one word response. Are you serious? Yes. Why are you bothering me? I said, okay, go ahead. But that was the first impression, and then when that novella got put into the bags at the Academy, the swag bags. At the Academy, and we had a conversation about that, and I got some press because that's where that book was going. I got some local press from that, and got to read for the reporter, and got some momentum with Lisa, because she was serious and was very dedicated to what she was trying to do, and that just augmented the first opinion of her being very serious and driven.
I forgot about that. Yeah, and so you guys know, I mean, I did come back to Ben with suggestions like, hey, what's the intent of this section, and what do you think about whatever, right? I mean, nothing, in my opinion, that was significant. Again, it was all just stuff to enrich the story. I forgot. Yeah, I got an offer for us to put our first, it was either our first or second short story anthology and novella anthology in the Oscar swag bags. Yeah. And I just thought, okay, sure, let's see what happens. So yeah, those are the kind of risks that I mean, we do all kinds of risks. We just kind of take it day to day and see what sounds like it's a good idea. So we actually got an offer to go to the London Book Fair this year. But since I don't get paid in my day job unless I actually, I put in hours, I just can't justify doing it. So maybe once I've got a day job where I get paid, I actually get vacation time, and I actually get paid for holidays and stuff, then I can probably pull it off. But right now I can't do it. So okay, well, we only have 2 minutes left. Man, you guys are all over it. Okay, here's the deal. What we're gonna end up having to do is answer these questions next week. So you can be pissed at me, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I should be here next week, Teha. Hope to see you next week after that answer.
Yeah. I honestly, and you didn't ask me this, but I'm going to answer anyway. My first impression of Ben, I loved Ben's writing, and I was completely intimidated because I am not. I have always adored poetry, and I have always adored narrative poems, but I don't feel as though I have the capability to pull it off in an effective manner. And so I was intimidated to be his editor. So I actually fully expected him to respond when I accepted the narrative poem with, no, fuck you, you don't know what you're doing. So when he came back and was like, are you sure? And I was like, well, yeah, and and then it came down to like, I actually went to some of our other first editors, like Barbara Lockwood, and asked, like, would you be willing to edit this? And they were like, no, you're the one who acquired these. It's on your ass. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I felt like I had to like actually be effective in doing so. But since then, I mean, so far everyone who we've published their poetry has seemed at least to be happy with the jobs we've done. So I'm assuming I don't suck at editing narrative poems. So anyway, just so you guys know. Okay, so we're over time. Sorry. But yeah, Teja, come back next week. Remember these questions, and come back with more, because we love having this more as like a dialogue. So with that, if you're in California, guys, stay safe. Please, there's tons of resources available out there right now. Just do a Google search. If you're not sure, just message me and I will give you links to a ton of fabulous resources that are out there. With that, we love you guys. As always, awesome to see you, and we will see you next week.
Next
Ciao.
week.